Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. Well, El Salvador passed the bill. Bitcoin is now legal tender in El Salvador. And if you look on the wiki page, it actually lists Bitcoin as official money in El Salvador. Now, I cannot confirm this, but it was rumored that when the president did this, he got a call from the Fed, CIA, and Washington. So maybe they're really trying to put pressure on him to reverse the decision, because I think El Salvador was using the USD before, and this could signal the USD is losing some prominence, at least in South America. The thing is, for the longest time, these countries didn't really have an option. Do I think the USD will stop being the world reserve currency? No, but they want to stop the USD from losing any kind of international pull, and that does include South America. Now, they're seeing the dominoes actually fall with El Salvador, now Paraguay. I don't know how strong the language might have been in this call, but I think looking at the dominoes fall, like El Salvador and Paraguay, I think the feds are kind of scared. I think the Feds in the United States and the federal government is kind of scared. Will they take drastic actions to suppress Bitcoin? I don't really think so, because there's a lot of Bitcoin, pro-Bitcoin interest in Congress, and there might actually be somewhat of a gridlock. Even the senators that were actually basically poo-pooing Bitcoin over this whole oil line thing, which is complete nonsense, because basically they hacked the oil line company. And that was not because of crypto or blockchain. That was just because the oil companies security sucked. And then they just demanded Bitcoin for payment. They were just using Bitcoin as a ransom payment, but it wasn't because of Bitcoin. It wasn't because Bitcoin got hacked or anything that the oil company actually lost control of their lines. That's a fake story. The real story is their security sucked. They got hacked, and then they demanded Bitcoin for payment. So Bitcoin itself is not the reason for the hack. It was just bad security. So I think they are trying to ramp up the pressure. They are trying to ramp up regulation. And they really don't like it because they can't print more Bitcoin, first of all, and then they can't really control it. The thing is, if the rest of the world starts adopting Bitcoin, which most countries won't, obviously, for at least another 10 years or so, then the US printing more money just wouldn't really be effective, and that would actually cause a lot of inflation. Right now, most countries still depend on USD, and I don't really see the bigger countries actually changing in quite a while. China is trying to push their own digital yuan, but that's not really that useful outside of China, because you can't even trade it freely on the open market. And it's something you can't trade freely on the open international market is not going to take over USD, zero chance of that, essentially. And the big countries like China, Russia, they're kind of anti-Bitcoin themselves. So that's not really going to replace USD anytime soon. But these smaller countries, I think it's getting some of the warning hairs up on the US, and they are kind of afraid. So they're going to try to slow it down as much as possible. Now they know they can't outright ban it, because they're not they're not like a dictator regime like China is. And like I said, there's plenty of people within the government themselves that actually have Bitcoin. And certain states, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, etc., are going to be very welcoming to crypto for jobs, because we have a federated system where the federal government doesn't make decisions for all the states. There's always going to be a lot of push and pull. Even Texas with Greg Abbott is more welcoming to Bitcoin. So Washington can't really move. And plus, like we've mentioned, some of Biden's highest and closest advisors have millions of dollars in Bitcoin themselves. So they're going to be pro Bitcoin as well, because it ties into their own financial interests. So Washington may try to move, but there's enough people interested, enough people pro Bitcoin, that it won't be anything extremely drastic. But I think the federal agencies, after seeing this El Salvador thing and seeing Paraguay follow suit, are actually kind of on the fritz. They are actually afraid that the US dollar will actually lose some of its power. It won't lose power all that fast, like I said, and it'll be a very long process. But I think they are actually afraid, and they're going to try to make phone calls to influence these other leaders to not act so hastily. But I think eventually the tide will actually turn. And some of these South American countries, maybe African countries, maybe Southeast Asian countries will actually turn to cryptocurrencies and rely on them a little bit more than USD. Right now, they both rely both on USD and going to start relying on Bitcoin. I think eventually the tide will actually turn. Now, the thing is, you can't just get more Bitcoin when you actually want to save yourself from a disaster. I think that's one of the things that will actually prevent Bitcoin spread too much, because since you can't just print more of it, Like, if you don't have Bitcoin to actually get yourself out of like a really bad disaster case, you can't just like print more of it. So you can't like have it help you. You still need USD for that. You still need to ask the United States for like a loan of USD. To actually, like, if there's a sudden pandemic, sudden natural disaster, you're still going to need to rely on a fiat currency that you can print more of so you can actually spend. With Bitcoin, you can't really do that, so you can't really rescue like yourself from a disaster or anything because it's actually locked. But it can be used as a store of value, which is probably what they're using it as. But I do think the U.S. government is afraid. That's why they're making these phone calls, at least the rumored phone calls. And I do think that will actually keep happening. There'll be some like pressure on the international lines. The U.S. knows it can't like extend its hand too far in this one. So that's my view on it. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.